It's time for us to share what hit us in the jellies the best last year. That's right, what we liked the most in 2019. That and more on today's episode of The Reel Review, so stay tuned.
Welcome to The Reel Review.
Welcome to The Reel Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. Everybody, I'm here with Joel, Hawkeye's haircut, Cunningham.
Really?
No.
Okay, I was like, man.
I'm a sucker for alliteration.
I got you.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, when I do get it freshly cut, there's a slight similarity of style.
Not really. I mean,
not really. I don't even go near with the
like,
spike thing.
That's more of like a really solid, like, faux hawk kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd have to keep the sides coming upward for another like 2 or 3 inches on each side. Because I shave it. So
something.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm here with Matt, ABC. Hey.
Oh, hey.
Because we got the
Michael?
upcoming... Well, yeah, but certain series potentially coming out that you're excited about.
Okay, yeah, totally.
Alphabet thing.
Yes. It's great, yeah. No, we were talking earlier about the Alphabet Squadron Star Wars book. That apparently they're making it into a trilogy, which I'm excited about. I just finished the first one, so bring it on. Anyways, so everybody, thank you for tuning in to the show. Again, this is The Reel Review, where we are somewhat goofy at times, as you can already see, but also serious sometimes too, you know? Goofy and serious together. Kind of fun. Anyways, to give you a quick breakdown on how the show typically works is we kind of fall on different ends of the spectrum. Joel's maybe a little bit more critical, analytical, pessimistic at times.
How dare you, man.
And then I might be more on the fan side of things, where I'm just a little bit more engaged into the emotional element of it, willing to overlook some of the other finer details. And be more optimistic in a situation that maybe doesn't even warrant optimism.
I've seen things, man.
Yes.
I've seen dark things.
I've seen dark things. It's really colored my life.
Exactly.
Anyways, so we kind of bring those perspectives together for you to bring what we then lovingly call a real review. So that is how that works. But Joel, before we get into these, to our top 10 list of our favorite films of 2019, why don't you give the people ways to get connected with us?
All right, I can do that. Get the people going.
Yes.
Let them know some info. We've got our website, which is reelreviewmedia.com. As always, you can get connected there. We have we're kind of cross-platforming our content onto reelreviewmedia.com, so it's a great place to get started if you're new to the podcast. Additionally, we have our Facebook, which is facebook.com/reelreviewmedia, and then our Twitter and Instagram, which are both at reelreviewmedia. And we'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives on these films. As Matt mentioned, we're talking about the top 10, so there is a lot we're going to be getting through, and we'd love to hear maybe, hey, you want to share your top 10? You can shoot us an email, reelreviewmedia@gmail.com.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. That's good. So we are going to get into this, and I want to throw out a couple of caveats or asterisks or something like that.
Disclaimers, whatever.
Yeah, so we are going to break down the top 10, our favorite top 10 films of this past year. And I will say this, I know that you haven't either, but I have not had a chance to see all of the movies.
I saw them all, man.
Yes.
Every single one of them.
So for example, 1917 is technically a 2019 film.
Yeah, it had a limited release.
And it came out wide this last weekend.
They did for their trying to get the Oscar.
Right.
Yep.
There are several movies like that, to be honest, and I have not had a chance to see all of them.
Yeah.
And so I would like to right now reserve the right to, in the future at any time, change my top 10 list. Because if I see 1917 and the people that I have full trust in, that are friends of mine that have seen it already, are telling me it's amazing, I want to be able to throw that in the list, or any other movie that I haven't seen yet, that kind of a thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. We'll just
Totally.
hold off on that official seal of
approval.
Top 10. Yeah, the top 10.
We'll meet again next year and see if it really stayed true.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll start doing repast years.
Yeah.
Tops.
Well, actually, in 2013, my favorite movie. Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah. Anyways, all right, cool. So now we're all on the same page.
We'll do our top 10 lists that we did. our
over the
favorite
last
top
decade.
10 list. Yeah, and we could talk about each one and how it's this.
Wow.
Yeah. Can we give another disclaimer real quick, too?
Yes, do it.
These are just films that we personally enjoy. So we understand that not everybody on this listening to the podcast is going to say, hey, that's my favorite film in that order. Maybe your favorite film didn't even make the list.
Right.
So just don't take it personally.
Right.
These are the films that we personally, I'd say even for me, which is a bit of a stretch, but is absolutely the case. This is just films that emotionally had the most positive experience from.
Right.
You know, so it's not even that they're like the best rated films or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally. And I totally get that as well, because I think with me being the more fan perspective side of things, I tend to go with movies that I think have a lot of repeat watchability.
Yeah.
Something that made me feel good.
Yeah.
A lot of like depressing stories probably won't be on my list.
Yeah.
And you know, what was this overall best? It doesn't have, they could absolutely be maybe not even the worst or not the best well put together films. They just might have hit me more emotionally in the right way.
Hit you in the jellies.
Anyways, in the jellies, exactly.
Cool.
So let's dive in. And so we're going to start at 10 and we're going to count ourselves down.
Do you want to do any honorables? Any honorables? I have a couple honorables if it's okay.
Okay, I have a couple of honorable mentions.
Yeah.
I'll just throw 3 of them out there real quick.
Sure.
Does that work?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I want to throw out there Ready or Not,
Mhm.
Us, and Little Women.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
Ready or Not was it was a big surprise. I like genre films and thriller, horror, that kind of a thing. And it was so surprising at the end. I left with my jaw was fell open at the end of that movie. I was like, wow, I cannot believe that just happened. And I really enjoyed that. Us, I felt in a similar way. I liked Get Out better, but it's such a high concept, crazy, baffling. I like weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
Little Women I found to be rather inspiring when I didn't expect it to be. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the acting. I enjoyed the lightheartedness between the camaraderie between all the actors, actresses, and I thought that was great.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. For me, similar, Us made the list of honorable mentions. I think similar, I liked Get Out better, but this one was good enough to be really high up there.
Yeah.
And I loved that they really took a different type of chance with this film.
Yeah.
Even from the get-go, you're watching and you're like, where are they going to start going down these Hollywood lines of this happens and this happens, and it never really does that.
Yeah.
And it constantly is kind of making you go like, now what in the world is happening?
Yes. It's bonkers.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. I think it just didn't leave me with the same rewatchable kind of enjoyment that I got from Get Out.
Right.
Shazam was another one, actually, for me.
Right.
Yeah. I liked that a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah.
I think it was honestly just the combination of the way they put sort of the origin story together and the humor of it. It was a lot funnier than I expected. And it just had a simple rewatchability. It was kind of DC on their best game. It was them just kind of letting a director take something in a fun way. And I'm excited to see the sequel.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
And then again, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World.
Yes, that was a good flick.
This one I had to put on here mainly because 3 films and all of them in their own way are pretty great. A second one was probably my favorite. But they all kind of hit in their own way. This leads to a very lasting, touching, kind of conclusion of the story of Toothless and Hiccup. And I started even from this reading the books, even from the last film, just to see how closely, and they're not the same at all.
Right.
But if a series of films can inspire me to read a series of books, then it's got to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And
my kids read
definitely
that. Read those books.
Yeah, they're
too.
silly. They're
Yeah,
really
yeah.
good. They're completely just I read them in
off the wall. And they have
an hour and a
crazy
half and-
illustrations and stuff too.
Yeah, and they're really goofy, but I really enjoyed it, and overall was very glad to see that they did a satisfying conclusion.
It's a
to the
solid
entire
trilogy.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool.
For sure.
That's it for me.
Right on. So let's dive into our top 10. Let's start off with 10. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
All right. So my number 10 is probably going to be surprising to some, but surprising to none. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I guess it doesn't, Matt. Yeah.
It doesn't have to.
Okay.
So anyways, my number 10 is the movie Crawl.
Okay.
It's just really simple. Hurricane, alligators attacking people. It was fun, tense, terrifying. It was like embodiment of what I like to go to the movie theater for.
Yeah.
And it was just super exciting.
Yeah.
And crazy, bonkers, all that stuff.
Yeah.
If that stuff is something that I have If those two words, crazy and bonkers, are in the description of a movie that I see that I had fun time in, it's great. So I did really enjoy that movie. It's not going to be the best on the production side, but I thought it was solid acting. I thought it was solid, fun, tense moments, and everything I needed to have a thrill ride at the theater. It was good.
Yeah.
So.
And as far as monster flicks, that's always been
monsters and apocalyptic stuff, all that stuff's my favorite. I love that.
So cool. Well, I have a very different number 10. So we're going already in a great direction here, Matt.
Come on.
Number 10 is Toy Story 4.
Right on.
About as
You're
different
like,
as
it's tense and terrifying.
This one deals with death. I mean, it deals more with meaning and purpose. I think, honestly, no joking aside, that was really what elevated this film to more than just a flat-out cash grab sequel for me. They had the ability with this fourth one to come in and answer a question that I had personally actually had said to numerous people. Where is Bo Peep? Like numerous times I had said that to people and was confused as to what happened to her. So present that in a compelling way, but then additionally make the film feel like it could stand on its own feet, its own legs, that it fit within the Toy Story universe, and that it had a natural progression of where the story was going to go with the toys. I think every single one of the three films has always dealt with this idea of like, well, they're toys with an owner, and what are they going to do when they're no longer found relevant by their owner?
Right.
When they age out or a better toy comes along. And this one kind of puts everything in this realm of like, well, there's a story beyond that.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very good and very nice, and had a kind of a bittersweet taste at the end, but more sweet and nice, and knowing that like, hey, they're going to continue on in their adventures and live a good life in their own way.
And Forky.
Yes. And who can forget Forky? Yeah. So, and the enjoyment too, I think part of it too for us was, we went to see a sneak preview, and we got to see this like way in advance. And
you did.
The
I didn't get to
see
that one.
I meant, sorry, not us two.
Yes.
Me and a couple other people, and I tried to invite you, I think.
I know, I couldn't make it.
Couldn't go. Yeah, but seeing that in advance kind of also had a lot of fun to it.
That's cool.
So, yeah, there you go. Number 10,
That's
Toy Story
awesome.
4. Not at all like yours.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, let's go with number 9 for me. And there's a lot of history with this next one, but my number 9 is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. And I want to throw that in the mix mainly because of the way I felt concluding what they're saying is the conclusion of the Skywalker saga over 9 films. Obviously, that could change at any point in time.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it was a good enough ending to the things, but had enough excitement and a couple of really, really great moments that I was really, really excited for, and there was so much hype going into it, and I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see me being like the Star Wars canon junkie with all the books and ancillary material. I can't wait to see what's next and what comes from this. There's so many questions I have. The novelization of this comes out in a couple months, and I'm excited to read that because that's where I get all the gaps where maybe my questions were left unanswered in the film. They're usually answered in the books. So that's where I'm hoping to get some, and I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I might actually read the book. I liked the film enough, but I feel like there was so many unanswered questions because they should have done 2 films.
They should have,
that I might actually read the book.
And I did read that where Chris Terrio said he wished they would have done the 2 films. I read that after the fact. As
soon as I heard that, I was like, why didn't you?
I know.
Oh my goodness, yeah. But cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else to say about that?
No, that's it. Just really enjoyed it.
Cool. Well, my number 9, and I don't know. It's like these are going to be. There's definitely going to be some crossover, but where they're going to land on each other's list is a very different. Usually, we're a lot closer. I feel like in some ways.
I think we will get closer soon.
Yeah, number 9, a film called Ford v Ferrari. This one kind of hit me out of nowhere. I'm not a huge, car building race guy. I don't watch a lot of car shows. I don't go to Bear Jackson, which is, the big car event they have out here and just about to start up.
My dad and I go, we used to go every year.
Yeah. Some folks are into that. They love that world. And that's never been big for me, but I think where this one hit me and definitely stood on was just the story of overcoming humans, human nature, and walls that, have been put in place. And any film that does a good job and as well can relate it into real world, tie it into the real world, is probably always going to at least interest me. So you mix that with the great acting. Christian Bale did a fantastic job with this film, and Matt Damon for what he was in. You mix those 2 elements together, great cinematography, well shot, well put together, and it was a really good, enjoyable experience for me. And I think what kept this film in a lot of ways from going higher on the list was sort of the way they ended it. Felt a little tacked on, even though it was part of the story.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah,
but it felt just like, hey, we got to give Matt Damon a moment to like earn his Academy Award nomination. It felt a little tacked on. That kind of kept it from getting all the way out there. But overall, everything up until like the last little bit of the film was just an incredible experience for me in the cinema, and I really enjoyed it. And it was one that, when it was out, everybody was like, hey, should I go see anything? I was like, yeah, go see Ford v Ferrari. Even if you're not a car person, there's probably going to be something in there for you that you really like.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
That's
Number
great.
9.
Good call. Number 8. Let's dive into that. Number 8 for me is going to be, I don't think this will be on your list, but I might be corrected here shortly.
Okay.
So number 8 for me is Knives Out.
Okay.
I really like this movie. It was just it was quirky and weird, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. There was a situation kind of like in Avengers Endgame where you're like, well, that just happened, so what's the rest of the movie about? I felt that way about this film as well. There's something happens, you're like, huh, okay, well, that's not what I thought was going to happen, so what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, what? And then it played out way differently than what I was thinking it was going to be. I enjoyed all the characters. All the actors, you could tell they were having a blast doing this movie. All the misdirects and different things and twists and turns and all that. I don't know. That to me, again, was something fun that I did not expect to happen, and I enjoyed watching the heck out of that thing.
Nice.
And they're talking about a sequel. I don't know what they would do, but I think they were going to follow Daniel Craig's character. I think that was something they were talking about.
Okay.
And I'd be totally interested in seeing that because I like seeing him kind of step out of that James Bond wheelhouse a little bit and do some other
southern
stuff.
type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how good that was.
It was brilliant, Joel. 150%.
Thank you.
Yes.
Like molasses off
the tune. Anyways, so Knives Out was my number 8.
Awesome. Well, I imagine this one is going to be as well a bit of a shocker for you, Matt. Maybe, well, for most everybody. Probably my next 2, in fact. My number 8, a film called Apollo 11.
Oh yeah, I never saw that one.
I'm a space junkie in so many ways. When I was a kid, I still have my NASA T-shirt. I used to love the idea of one day going into space and being an astronaut. That was kind of like a dream of mine. So I think in that sense, just deep down, there's like a way that it connects with me, where it like connects into my childhood and flashbacks, all that kind of stuff. But
Space
just
King.
going into this, I had interest there. But the way they were able to put together the story and using footage that has never been seen before, and I'm sure they did a ton of work to like update it and upgrade it. It was just one of those things where you watch it and you just get a sense of, because I wasn't really alive back when they did this, when they shot Apollo 11 into space and they landed on the moon, that happened before, I still felt like I was almost in a way living that and being there for it. And I think if a film can do that, especially a documentary film, that's such an amazing thing. And this film absolutely did do that. There's just the way they put it together. It was very simple, but it's like you really feel like you're on the ride, on the journey.
And it doesn't feel like a documentary?
No, it's weird. It kind of goes above. It is a documentary, but it goes above that, and it feels almost more of just like a story that you're on the ride for, and you're joining these characters, and you don't get really in depth into. But it's more of like the story of human triumph once again, which is something that's a term that can really resonate with me.
No,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool, actually.
Yep.
I've seen that as well before, and wasn't sure if it like falls in line with it being a documentary type of thing, but
I mean, it's like it's such a story that I don't know, but I definitely felt like it was a documentary type film. It was a film that was a documentary. That's how it felt to me, more than being a documentary film.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Diving into my number 7, I think this might be on your list, but we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Is Spider-Man Far From Home.
Might make an appearance.
Really like this one. I liked it better than the first one.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a higher level of rewatchability to this one. And also I thought the first one, just in comparison to is anticlimactic as far as what you would call the quote unquote boss fight.
Yeah.
I think that this one reaches a new level of action that the first one didn't hit.
Yeah.
The stakes were raised, and even ends on a cliffhanger where you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, wow.
What is coming?
And I think this movie would be really sad if Sony and Marvel didn't actually fix their arrangements to get Spider-Man back in that.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, they have.
They did fix
Got
it, yes.
2 more, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so anyways, really, really happy about it. Had a lot of fun. It's really funny. Jake Gyllenhaal is brilliant in this movie. I really enjoyed him in it. Just really different like slants on what we've come to know in the past. And like the way they tied in like Jake Gyllenhaal's character to the past and seeing some different things with that, I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, a lot of fun. I'm excited to see what happens down the road, but Spider-Man Far From Home. Boom.
Cool. Well, my number 8, actually, wait, yeah, are we on 8?
7.
7. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
my brain is I think it's because I'm so just like, I can't believe this one is actually where it's at on my list, but it is. It's a film called Disney Nature Penguins.
What?
It's a film
Did
by
we talk
Disney.
about this movie?
I don't think we did. I'm sure there's probably other people out there that had the exact same, like, what? But I'm not going to apologize.
What?
This is my top 10 list.
I'm still like,
of
what?
films.
This is a movie? Why
Disney
didn't I know
Nature
about this?
Penguins. Yeah, a film is actually the narrator is Ed Helms.
Is this on Disney Plus?
I believe it. They have a lot of their Disney nature films on there. I don't know
Yeah,
if
I just
their
didn't see a
Penguins one is on there. But a little penguin.
Okay.
He
Happy
is.
Feet?
It's not Happy Feet. It's a simple
He
kind of
doesn't dance.
charming little romp into the world of penguins, told almost as if you're hearing the inner monologue of one of the penguins. And I love penguins. That's
Yeah.
kind of one of my
Okay.
things.
All right.
My girlfriend for my birthday took me to go play with the penguins
Yeah.
at the local aquarium here. I love penguins, and again, this is my list, hey guys. So I get
Danny
to tell
DeVito?
say what I want on my list. No Danny DeVito.
Oh, okay.
I just enjoyed it. It was simple. It was fun. It was engaging. I left just like a sense of happiness, kind of
good.
in my jellies.
This wasn't Happy Feet, but it gave you Happy
yeah,
Feet.
it gave me happy feet, and
Okay.
it was such a like an odd little out of nowhere kind of film. And somebody might see it and think it's more of a kid's film. And it obviously is not trying to appeal to adults. But hey, I liked it. I thought it was
Yeah.
great. I enjoyed watching the penguin adventures and experience, and you get to almost feel like a penguin in some fun kind of way.
Just
So,
brilliant. Way
yeah.
to throw something out of like nowhere.
I know. That's what I said. These next two, I was like, my last film, like, these next
Okay.
two are going to be out of nowhere. But hey, if you want a simple little fun film to sit down and watch,
Yeah.
and get kind of I laughed at this a lot more than I would have expected. The
Okay.
jokes, they hit well.
And, you have a comedian telling it too.
Yeah.
I think that helps.
So
But that's
yeah,
great.
So I really liked it. Yeah, go
Wow.
ahead and watch it if you want.
It's called
Disney
Penguins.
Nature Penguins.
Disney
One word,
Nature
Disney
Penguins.
Nature, penguins.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not like a well-known film. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this next one for me, number 6 on the list is The Peanut Butter Falcon.
Hey.
I will say I did see this after you, and we never got a chance to talk about it. But I think this film, it's just a good movie. I don't know. It's simple, feel good, emotionally satisfying for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Shia LaBeouf.
Mm-hmm.
Even with some of the weird stuff he does, not barring just his personal life. I mean, he does some weird movies too.
Yeah.
But this movie was just really, it was just good. I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed watching the chemistry between him, all the leads, even Dakota Johnson, which I'm not as big of a fan of.
Yeah.
But I think she did well in this. I think this is the right type of material to maybe alter her in the trajectory of the different types of films that she's doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just really enjoyed it, and I feel good movie, and that's kind of what I like. I'm an optimistic person and like to see that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Are you ready for my number 6?
Yes, absolutely.
This one will as well be well, maybe divisive, just in its placement.
Okay.
Probably very different than yours.
All right.
It's a little tiny film called Avengers Endgame.
Hey.
Yeah. Again, people remember, why is this so low on your list? I really enjoyed Avengers Endgame. I thought it was a great film. I watched it 3 times in cinemas. I got the full experience and loved so many aspects of, the conclusion to this epic building of, the Infinity War saga and the characters and the ending of who they're going to be in the franchise and all these aspects of it. Honestly, and I don't feel like I need to go too far into details of, why I didn't necessarily put higher, but it just the story. I had a much harder time with the story than I did with the first one.
Sure.
Part 1 of this saga, specifically with these back-to-back films, it just, there were so many questions and like what and how and where and why that I just couldn't engage with it as much. But I still really enjoyed the film. I mean, it's on my top 10. It's going to go down in history as probably one of the most, amazing cinematic experiences I've ever had.
Yeah.
To have gone through like this decade of films and see these characters. And there was actually some moments where I teared up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In seeing these characters on screen probably for the last time.
It's really great.
So I really did enjoy it. I really thought it was a good film. Definitely worthy of my top 10. Just maybe not my top one. But
Sure.
I will also say this. My next couple, these next couple ones to the end are so close.
Yeah.
They're like points of difference, like less than a point, some of them. And it's
I would say my top
hard.
4 are in that same vein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go, Matt. That's
awesome.
Number 6, yeah.
That is awesome. Well, let's break it down into the top 5 now.
Ooh,
okay. My number 5. Okay, and it was released in theaters, just in case you're curious, is El Camino.
Hey.
Because Breaking Bad was and is probably my favorite show ever. And I will, just because of the sheer consistency and the brilliance of the writing of it. This took me back, and it wasn't subpar. It was actually really good. And whenever somebody creates a movie of a TV show after the fact, they're usually not that good.
Yeah.
But this was actually really, really good.
Yeah.
And makes me miss the series, makes me miss the characters, and makes me miss Vince Gilligan and how he writes and directs things. And I want to see more of this. And they said a Breaking Bad movie, as if they were teeing it up to maybe have other ones in the future. I would love to see something. Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't have to be the same characters. Obviously, they can get to a point where they could run things into the ground. But I thought this was really, really good explanation and answered some questions that maybe you didn't feel like you need answering. But at the same time, it may not have been what we would call a quote unquote needed film, but it was a welcome addition, in my opinion, and I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
My number 5, believe it or not, El Camino.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we matched up finally.
There we go.
So many things what you're saying. I agree with actually what you're saying. This felt like a really, really, really well done fan film.
Yeah.
I mean, it was written and directed by the same guy that did the original, so it's not really a fan film,
right? But
it was like a film for fans. And you really definitely need to have seen the Breaking Bad series in order to engage with this film in a much deeper way. But it was so cool. It was a small film in the sense that it had a small cast. It looked like it was a simple production budget, but it was so big in that it blew up the world that Jesse and Walt had been in, and it showed the impacts, because in the show you get inklings of how the world that they're a part of is being impacted, but this film actually kind of put that in perspective. When you see the motorcade of, I'm guessing like drug or FBI or CIA or whoever flying down the road to find Jesse, you're like, wow, they are nationally known and recognized. The news broadcast, and you get to see the characters again. And it was so touching to kind of like get a sense of like, well, because out of everybody in this story, you're kind of wondering, Jesse, like what's going to happen? Where's that going to go? So I thought that was really cool. And it does leave it open. I mean, there's definitely side characters that you could see, even with Jonathan Banks' character, Mike, you could give like a short little film for him of like what was going on during the events of Breaking Bad, because he's only such a small part of that, and so many other things. It was really nice to dip our toes back into the Breaking Bad world, especially as similar for me, favorite show of all time. Yeah. So there you go.
So good. Well, here we're going to get into the top 4 here. And this is what I was saying a second ago. This is where all of these movies kind of run together a little bit for me, and it's hard to differentiate the order that should be placed. So they're very, very close. But I'm going to start with number 4 being Yesterday.
Okay.
Yesterday. So this movie was a surprise to me. Really fun. Loved all the music, all the remixes. I am disappointed in the soundtrack because the soundtrack is bits of the songs and not whole songs, which is kind of sad. Anyways, but this movie was fun. The music was awesome. It was actually really, really funny. I laughed way more than I felt like I should have.
Yep.
My only drawback for the whole film was Kate McKinnon's character, but other than that, everything I loved. I loved the struggle that he found in like what to do with these songs and how he should like take credit for it, and like that whole struggle I thought was really, really interesting. I really, really liked it. I like the love story, even though it could have used a little development up front. I think more, but other than that, it was great, and I want to watch it again. It was one of my favorites of the year. Just I smiled. It was a smiley movie, and I really enjoyed it the whole time.
Happy film.
Yes, it was great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, my number 4, Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Hey.
Yeah, this one ranked a little higher for me than Avengers Endgame. I had a lot of issues with the first iteration of Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
I remember.
I think he's a fine Spider-Man. It's not his portrayal. It was more of just the structure of the film, it being almost like, to me, what I felt like was like an Iron Man Spider-Man.
Yeah.
More about his suit and the tech and the way that he could do these things.
Yeah.
Whereas most of the time Spider-Man films are supposed to be this struggle between him wanting to be who he is and also having this superhero secret identity that he has to deal with. And this film felt like he stepped more into that direction by far. You know, they cut out a ton of the whole, like, you know, what gadget and gizmo his suit can do.
Yeah.
And it was much more heartfelt. It was dealing with the emotional kind of pit that we found ourselves in after the events of Endgame, and it resonated so strongly. But then additionally, it was a good, complex villain. I thought that the twists that were in the story were fun and engaging. The story and the characters, I felt like the characters were much more enjoyable this one. It felt like they kind of like they felt like really like pointed in the last film, but this one it felt like the edges had kind of been smoothed off, so they were kind of like more like normal people, whereas in the last film they were more like caricatures. Yeah. And I've always been a big Spider-Man fan. He's always been like one of my favorite characters, so it was kind of cool to see him like, hey, he's going to go out in the world and what it would be like here. And there was humor. There was a lot of fun, you know, with his like alternate ego that becomes famous in like the European area and all this kind of stuff. I really enjoyed it in a lot of ways. Yeah, Night Monkey. And I really liked it. It was one of those films that like left me thinking, wow, I'm excited to see even what you said, you know, with the way that it ended, where they could take this and why, and the reintroduction of certain characters that we know from different parts of his world, and the way they did that was really fun too. So left me really excited to see where they're going to go with it. And that's my number 4.
I'm excited as well. I think it's going to be good. Future is bright for Spider-Man.
Absolutely.
Okay, my number 3 is Jojo Rabbit.
Hey,
this movie, this movie, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really know what it was about. I know it was a satire by Taika Waititi, World War II. Like that's what I knew about it going into it. Yeah. And I am just, as time continues, just becoming more and more of a fan of Taika Waititi, as we saw. And if you've seen the finale of The Mandalorian, oh my, wow. Like, and you can see his fingerprints all over it. His humor, his like just conversational, just like nonchalantness about, you know, whatever some characters are talking about, just like, you're like, why is this important? And then it just pays off in some weird way. Yeah. He's just got such an eye for some of this stuff. And this movie, it has a really deep message, and it's about, it's really about someone confronting themselves and why they quote unquote hate. Yeah. And I thought it was a really, really clever way to approach it. And it's very sensitive subject matter, especially you're talking about where you have Taika playing Hitler in a really like non-serious way. Yeah. And it's sensitive matter, but I felt like it was handled in a way that I respect the story he was telling, and I thought the way he told it was was a great balance of not, being overly indulgent in some ways. It was also very, very funny. I was cracking up almost every time he showed up as Hitler on it in some way, shape, or form, because it would just be like out of nowhere, something really ridiculous was being said, and just the way he talked was really funny. And JoJo's interaction, I love the actually the two kids in the movie I thought were brilliant, but I thought just altogether it was hilarious. And it also got really, really heavy towards the end. And I love that beat in the movie. I will say that diminished any other laughs they were going for after the fact, because I couldn't get over that. Yeah. But I thought it was a really strong way to have that emotional beat in there. I think he could have decided to really stay on it and kind of relish that moment, that sad moment longer, and let it affect different things. And they could have really stayed on that, but I think they moved away from it quick enough to where it didn't get too overhanded. And I just really enjoyed it. Only problem with the movie was I couldn't laugh at anything else after the heavy stuff happened. Yeah. But that was like super late into the movie, and it didn't really ruin it for me. So I really, really liked this movie and was very, very surprised by it. Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Well, and that's why I've laid back on talking about it. So,
yeah.
Yeah. I will go into my third then. It's a film you talked about, The Peanut Butter Falcon.
Hey!
I really enjoyed this one. It was another one that kind of came out of nowhere. I was hearing good things about it and decided to kind of give it a shot. And I really was pleasantly surprised by it. The best way that I can almost explain to people, because people ask, what is it about? And it's like, it's a coming of age tale, but it's almost like if Napoleon Dynamite were to be mixed with like a serious drama.
Right.
It's kind of like this tongue-in-cheek adventure, but also has real resonating seriousness. And I think, like you said, the casting on this was like pitch perfect. Yeah. They nailed the casting with it. And it never felt like, especially with telling the story of Zach, who's this young man with Down syndrome, how that could have been played for laughs or for like, right. cheap, drama or something. They never did that.
Right.
And it's like, that's the story, is that they shouldn't treat this guy a certain way just because of it, but also they did that with the film. And I thought that was really effective and well done. And I think Dakota Johnson was probably in her best role with this film. It felt like it fit, and it felt like, I don't know, as much as how uncomfortable these guys probably were throughout the course of this journey at times, sleeping outdoors and, probably covered in dirt and bugs and all sorts of stuff. You're kind of like, man, it would be fun to like go on an adventure like that and to kind of just do that. And I thought the ending was silly and fun in all the right ways. And it kind of went in this direction where you're like, oh, is this going to get really dark?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, no, it's nice. Right. So it was really good. It was a very awesome film, and I left the theater feeling like that was a fun ride, and I really got something out of it. It's like, this is what cinema should be more about. Yeah. Not just, well, let's give another cheap, like, alternate version of this that we've seen 15 times.
Or like what I've seen with A24's horror movies. Let's just make everybody feel terrible.
Exactly.
Anyways.
Anyway, so yeah, that's my number 3.
That's awesome. My number 2 is Ford v Ferrari.
Hey.
So this one I was thinking about what you were saying when you were talking about it earlier in your list. I'm the opposite. My dad is an absolute car guy. He met Carroll Shelby. He knew Carroll Shelby, met him several times, bought stuff from him, hung out with him and all this stuff. And we went to Barrett-Jackson all the time. Yeah. So it's totally opposite. And seeing this, I was transfixed. And Ford GT40 has always been one of my favorite cars, but this is like, it put it a little bit more. In fact, my only issue with the movie is I wanted to see the actual development of it before they got hands on it.
Didn't do too much of that.
No, so, but the movie was thrilling. James Mangold, he did. I don't know. I've seen a lot of racing movies, and if you see racing movies, it can get boring. But the way they filmed it, the way they were cutting between cars and the passing, or between the pit and the driver, and all those things just made it was perfect. The editing was really good. Yeah. And I was highly impressed. And a lot of times it's like, oh my gosh, this is intense. Yeah. And this is my favorite role that Christian Bale has played. I love his character in this. Ken Miles, and just the way that he's interacting with the cars and the way he's like kind of a family man as well. And this whole thing, I was just like, oh, it just hit me emotionally. And I was just like, oh, this is so good. And just a thrilling, great movie. I don't like that tag at the end either, but I do see why they put it there. I get it. I see there's maybe a little bit of like, this might be for that Oscar thing for Matt Damon, but but that's not how I initially saw it. I only thought about that after you mentioned something. Like, oh, maybe. Okay. But not a big deal for me. Really love this movie. Really, really great. And I wish I could get like some sort of sequel that's not like weird.
How could they do that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I love the interaction between Matt Damon and Christian Bale in this, and really, really, I was blown away by this.
Yeah, their relationship sells it.
Yeah,
it's
so
really
good.
The ship that it sailed on.
Yeah, it was excellent.
A lot of good ones too. So
excellent.
Cool. Well, my number 2 then, film you mentioned yesterday.
Hey.
Yeah, I love. This came out of nowhere. I think it actually came with a film from 2 years ago called Sing Street. I realized that I love this sort of film where it has music in it.
But it's not a musical.
But it's not a musical.
Right, yes.
I kind of really like those types of films a lot of times, especially when it's good music.
Sing Street was really good.
Yeah, and yesterday had the Beatles.
Yeah.
And the Beatles have some amazing songs.
Yep.
And I loved, in a lot of ways, the story that they were telling with this. It was fun. It was inventive. It took things in a very different direction. And you're kind of like, the whole time you're watching it, you're like, well, when are you going to wake up? When is this going to change? When is this? And they never do that. They never give you that moment of like, we're backing down. They just run with it.
Yeah.
And it feels good. It feels refreshing. It feels fun. Same with you. Like I laughed out loud a number of times. It feels honest and raw. Things go in some odd directions at times, especially with some of the relationships and the romantic relationship. It felt a little bit forced to go the way they did with the relationships, but it felt like it made sense with the world and it made sense with the characters. And really just an enjoyable experience. You know, you can sit down and watch it and beat your, tap your foot and nod your head to the music, kind of sing along. And I mean, even just the time where he's trying to sing one of these songs for his family, and they keep just getting interrupted.
I was laughing
and he's
so
like,
hard.
and he's freaking out because it's like, this is a famous song, and they think he's talking about himself.
Right.
I mean, you're laughing out loud, and you're feeling what he's feeling in such a funny way. And it was when I saw this twice, I'd watch it again.
Yeah.
It was a cool premise.
Yeah.
It's almost like I would like to see a sequel.
Yeah.
I don't know how they would do it.
I don't
they
know
could do
either.
something else, but it's open for that. I mean, the world that he lives in is so different compared to what ours is.
It's crazy.
That was one thing I would have liked to have seen even more, is like how these things don't
I also
relate,
loved Ed Sheeran in that.
Oh yeah, he was really good.
Yeah.
Surprisingly good, because he felt like Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
He
And I
didn't
was
feel
like,
like he's
it doesn't feel like he's trying too hard to act or anything. It felt like legit.
Absolutely. So there you go. Yesterday, number 2.
So good.
All right, number 1, Matt.
My number 1
drum
movie,
rolls.
and I will caveat this with, I think there's a lot of history that goes into this as well, and why it's my number 1, but it's Avengers Endgame. I think Marvel has done something truly spectacular, and I said something similar with Infinity War, but with Endgame, they've really, and I wish Star Wars would have done a better job of taking cues from like the master plan and how to end something, because it didn't pull it off like Avengers Endgame did.
Yeah.
How you take 10 years of film and you turn it into this epic conclusion that pays off in like every way, and has all of these characters, and how all of them have their own special time to shine, and how all of them like there's no loss of stakes, because things actually happen, things that are permanent and definite, and things that you can't change actually happen in the movie. And I think they just did an incredible job. The Russo brothers, I don't know what exactly they have planned in the future, but I'm on board for anything they do in the future. They have just some special way of collaborating with each other that is amazing. This movie has so much great action in it, so many heartfelt, heavy moments. The way they even open the movie, you're like, oh my gosh, like I thought I was over all this, and then they just bring you right back into it. And it was some of the best acting I've seen in the MCU. some specifically from Evans and RDJ. RDJ, it's like I'm his best friend. Robert Downey Jr. And I think a lot of other brilliant performances as well. Scarlett Johansson, even why am I blanking on Hawkeye's name? Anyways, I didn't care for the whole like I'm smart Hulk thing as much, although it did play to some laughs later in the film.
Yeah.
But I was missing my like rage out Hulk a little bit, and I think that's the only thing that I really had a drawback on. But other than that, this movie was just epic in every sense of the word, and I loved it.
Well, very good, man.
Yeah.
Number one for you. Number one for me. One that wasn't even on your list, which I'm surprised, maybe not that surprised about. A film called Joker.
Oh, snap.
Did you forget
well,
about
let me
Joker?
tell you why. I'll tell you why about Joker
Okay.
after this.
Yeah, I came into this thinking I was going to be on board for an interesting experience, not knowing what to expect. Joaquin Phoenix can be great. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, okay, but normally does a good job. I was just blown away, I think, by the story of this film. It's a tough film, and I think maybe for some people, not putting it higher on the list, it's a difficult film to watch. It is a difficult rewatchability level. There is some sadness that is going to be ingrained in the story, and you're not going to leave it feeling uplifted. But I think it's a film that takes a lot of risks.
Yeah.
And what I saw, even going into like, hey, this is a resurgence, and I know I keep saying like, well, I'd like them to do new things. Even though we've seen characters from this universe, we know Batman and everything, and the Joker. Seeing it portrayed in this way, a down and dirty, realistic portrayal of a person with mental disabilities and how that can impact them, and the stakes that are there in a world where it doesn't really care about the mental disabilities, what that can do to a person in a way, warp them, was just so engaging, and there was so many shocking moments in this film that were just like, they were necessary to make the film what it was, but left me with a strong impression. And when I left this film, it just felt like larger than life. It felt so real and honest, but dark. It felt like I want to see this Joker move forward and see the universe that he's in more ways. And I don't know, throughout the year, I have a few cinematic experiences where I'm able to pretty much just like forget about everything else going on in my life and just focus entirely on the film and just like edge of your seat type thing.
Right.
And this was one of those films for me where I literally just the entire time was on the edge of my seat. Now, it's not a perfect film. I will say that out the get-go. There was like 2 or 3 too many dance breakdown moments for me.
Too many dance moves, yeah.
Yeah, there was some elements of some of the other things that happened which were predictable, and like I totally got where it was going to go with the story. But even in the way that those happened and were portrayed, like I got it, and I was there, and it kept moving forward. And like I said, it made me just forget about sort of the world that was around me. So, and I will say this as well, I don't need to keep saying this, but all of these top probably 6 films for me were so close, within like a point of each other almost as far as where they were at. So,
yeah. I don't disagree with anything you said. But, and I think I've come to this revelation of sorts the last couple of weeks, and I told you about it. And, Joker is purely looking at it from a film standpoint, I think is a masterpiece. Yeah. And I really, in fact, I mean, if I was just grading movies on their masterpiece-ness of that, I would say Joker would be on my list. Yeah. But I've come to this revelation for me, and that's why there's not a lot of heavy movies on my list, other than maybe some elements of like Jojo Rabbit, and Ford v Ferrari a little bit. But this movie, Joker, I left feeling so depressed and so dirty. Yeah. And I was just like, oh man, that was so good, but like I just feel terrible. And it's not, and that's the point of it. They wanted you to feel that way. And 100% Todd Phillips, Joaquin Phoenix, they succeeded in that. Yep. But I just don't want to feel that way after I leave a movie, to be honest. And that's why I didn't put it on the list.
I totally get that. That's why it's your top 10 and my top 10.
Exactly.
It's completely different. And I don't see anywhere near probably as many horror suspense films as you do. So my year is mostly just good, bad films, but because they're good or bad.
That's why I like movies like The Witch, Lighthouse, or Midsummer or Hereditary, all those like acclaimed art house like horror films,
Yeah.
I will not rate them in my top ever because I feel so terrible and awful and dirty and grimy after watching those
I haven't
films.
seen any of them.
So I've seen all of them,
Yeah.
and I felt all the same way after watching them. And so,
Well, I'm not faulting you.
Yeah.
I'm just
That's just an
different
explanation
top
for
tens.
people listening. Like, why didn't you like the joke? It's a master, guys. I'm not debating it's a masterpiece. It 100% is. I just don't want to ever watch it again.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good, man.
Anyways, so guys, that's our top 10 and some honorable mentions. I think our one of our next episodes we're gonna have our worst of.
This is one where I get really angry.
You get really
Everybody always
angry.
loves this,
and
but-
this is also the one where I struggle to find 10 that I really despise.
I've got 4 dishonorable mentions and a full list, so we're good to go.
I have a full list, and I couldn't find any dishonorable mentions because I was stretching for some of my full
geez.
list.
There we go.
Because I kind of they're like, okay, but I didn't see enough terrible movies apparently.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's going to be our next show. So stay kind of in the loop for that. We'll have that released hopefully within the next week or so. See, and but other than that, that was our top 10. If you have anything else that you'd like to add to that or like comment on, or if you totally disagree with us or totally agree with us, email us. Hit us up on social media or on our email account, which is reelreviewmedia@gmail.com, or Facebook, Twitter, Instagram @reelreviewmedia. And let us know about that. Let us know your thoughts, your opinions. If you had some different movies that maybe we missed. Again, we haven't seen all of the movies.
Nope.
1917 may very well make its way onto that list.
Yep.
Once we get a chance to see it, but we haven't seen it yet. So we can change the list later on. But yeah, that's it. Joel, you got anything else?
No, I'm good.
Cool.
Not excited, but excited to talk about our worst of.
Awesome. Well, with that, it's been real.
It's been real.